next?
We have to open the room first. 1 second.
Oh, that's true.
Sorry. I just opened it. It should be starting to filter in now.
There's only 3 attendees outside of us, but that's probably staff. Yep, except for Grover. All right, let's go.
All right, commissioners, your first policy session is federal legislative update. We have public and government affairs as well as your federal contract lobbyist summit strategies. So we'll bring in Sue Hildick, Hal, Michelle, and Mark. So we'll wait a second to load them in the room.
Sue's back from vacation.
Oh no, it wasn't vacation.
Oh no.
It was homeschooling. Parental leave.
All right, Sue, please go ahead.
Hi there, commissioners. Nice to see you. We're happy to have our summit team back with us to give you their annual update on the status of your federal priorities. So we have Hal Hemstra, Mark Diedrich, and Michelle Jaguar. And a couple things I just wanted to say is we will not be traveling to DC in person in this next 6 months, as you've probably gathered, but we are working with Summit to try to set up some meetings with the delegation via Zoom in February so that you can convey the agenda. And we have a new member of the delegation in Congressman Bentz. So it'll be an opportunity to connect with him and share Clackamas's priorities. So with that said, I'm going to turn it quickly over to, I think, to Mark or Hal. Okay, take it away.
Thank you, Sue. We really appreciate the opportunity to sit down and visit with you for a few minutes today. It's nice to see you all. It's been quite some time since we were able to visit in person, and we know that because of the pandemic, everyone has had to change their meeting process and their discussion process so significantly this year, and that's presented some interesting challenges on the federal lobbying side. But we've continued to try to make sure that the congressional delegation understands and appreciates the challenges that you're faced with and understands the challenges that you face on a daily basis. And so we've tried to be your voice on all of your priorities as well as those that have just come up because of the pandemic. So today in our few minutes with you, we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of state of the play right now in Washington, DC, where things are congressionally. And as the memo points out, you know, we start off on kind of a federal overview of where things are with the election. Then I'm going to give that. Then I'm going to turn to Mark, and he's going to talk a little bit about the emerging process for congressionally directed funding that we anticipate may become available next year, both on the appropriation and on the reauthorization side. And then we're going to turn to a very quick overview of your priorities. And I'll talk a little bit about your transportation priorities. Michelle will talk a little bit about Willamette Falls Locks priorities. And Mark will talk about your wildfire and various resource wilderness priorities and forestry priorities. And we probably won't have time to get into all the details that are included in the overarching memo that we prepared for you a couple of weeks ago. And those included a number of updates on human services initiatives. We're happy to talk about those, but we thought we'd just focus primarily on the transportation update, on the Willamette Falls Locks update, and on wildfire and resource updates. So with that, let me very quickly talk a little bit about where things are at the federal level. I'm sure that you've all been following the news very closely and seen that the certifications in Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Nevada have all come in the last 48 hours. And that seems to have broken the logjam on whether or not we're moving into a transition with the Biden-Harris president-elect and vice president-elect. I don't think we're going to see a concession from the current president, but that doesn't really matter at this point. Seems like we're moving ahead with the transition. That's good news for getting folks in place at the various agencies, and that'll be helpful for Clackamas County as we move into the new year. As you've also seen in the news, I'm sure, that while the Democrats managed to take back the White House, they didn't do very well in the Senate or in the House. And in the Senate, the two pending Senate positions in Georgia will completely influence whether or not the Democrats are in control in the Senate, and that will influence the overall future and how aggressive the Democrats can be and the new president-elect can be in achieving some of their objectives. That will have some influence over the county and the state as well, because Democrats have generally been more supportive of state and local funding, particularly in coronavirus pandemic relief bills. And if the Republicans are controlling the Senate, I think that will influence how successful those efforts are in the coming months. On the House side, the good news is that Oregon's own Peter DeFazio was reelected in a tight and difficult race, but he did emerge victorious by a number of points. And so that's great news for the county because he does understand your transportation priorities. We've spent a lot of time, the commissioners, you all have spent a lot of time with Peter DeFazio over the years. And he's going to be sitting in the chairmanship position again in reauthorization. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming minutes. So let's see, on implications for the Biden administration, as I already said, whether or not they take the Senate will influence pretty significantly how aggressive the Biden administration, excuse me, can be. And that will influence some of the counties' opportunities next year. But as we get into the appropriations discussion and priorities, we'll kind of expand on that. So let me turn to Mark and talk a little update us a little bit on where things might be on the appropriation side and reauthorization side next year.
Sure, thank you, Hal. And again, I'd like to echo his words. It's good to see you all, see all your faces, even if it is just virtually this year. This will be the first year in my life, I think, that I will not set foot in the state of Oregon, which is a sad state of affairs, but at least I get to spend time virtually with you all here today. So the appropriations process, where things kind of sit right now, the funding for the government, none of the 12 appropriations bills that fund the federal government have actually been signed into law right now. They expired at the end of September. At that point in time, they did a short-term continuing resolution to push the can down the road December 11th. And at this point, appropriations staff and members on the House and the Senate side are working together, trying to come up with a long-term deal to fund the government through the end of the next fiscal year. From conversations I've had with the committee staff, I have every reason to believe they're going to get there, if not by the 11th, by some point in time shortly after there. I think everyone wants a scenario where you're not talking about a government shutdown as we're headed towards Christmas, and we're not, trying to push everything out into the new year to really kind of mess up what happens during calendar year 11 by filling up all the time, trying to actually, again, avert a shutdown and fund the government. So I believe that that's the likely scenario, that we're going to reach some kind of an agreement on funding the government going forward, and that will happen. We'll continue to kind of stay on top of that and make sure you all are informed on that. The other thing which we've been working, not only talking with appropriators in both the House and the Senate, but also working with the Clackamas County staff, is the possibility, as Hal mentioned, of there being congressionally directed spending during the FY22 process. Majority Leader Hoyer came out a few days ago saying that his intention was for the House to return congressionally directed spending, or often called earmarks, to the process. I know that a number of committee chairs in the House, including Peter DeFazio, Adam Smith from the Armed Services Committee, and now outgoing Chair Nita Lowey from New York, have all stated their preference this past Congress, beginning of that, for a return of congressionally directed spending. And we don't really know what that's going to look like or what may happen. So we're trying to do our best to make sure we position the county well, so that you are prepared and able to take advantage of these opportunities to get funding if it becomes available. If it happens, there's probably going to be a really tight window of time for us to actually react and make sure the county's priorities and voices are heard. And that's why we're working with your staff right now to look at what kinds of projects have been funded in the past and what types of agencies, and identify county priorities where we can make sure that Clackamas County is as well situated as possible going forward. So again, we're not sure where that really goes, but we're trying to be as proactive as possible to make sure we don't miss any opportunities. And Hal can get into that as well when talking about some on the transportation side, but the in addition to the appropriations, which are the annual spending bills, there's also potential opportunity through the transportation reauthorization bill, which would go through Peter DeFazio's committee, as Hal mentioned there. So I will move it on to Michelle, I think, at this point.
Sure. Well, let's get into a quick update on the various priorities. And Michelle, why don't we hear from you on all things Willamette Falls and Willamette Falls locks, and then we'll come back to transportation and then end up on resources and wildfire, and then obviously break in at any point for the commissioners if you have questions, but we're happy to take questions at the end as well. Michelle?
Yeah, so I will be very brief. I think most of the commission is aware of what's going on with Willamette Falls locks. The commission had a meeting a month ago. There is an effort underway to send a letter to Governor Brown asking her to once again put some funding into her proposed budget for the biennium. Last time around, she had proposed $7.5 million, which, as you know, was not approved for a variety of reasons. The request, as I understand it now from the commission, is going to be that same $7.5 million. As you may recall, that sum of money is what is estimated by the engineering firm to just get the locks operational and open again. It does not include the additional $7+ million that would modernize the locks, install new systems, and do some additional work. So the $7.5 million is the bare minimum to get the locks operational. So a letter is going to be going to the governor, and I think there are plans for follow-up. I think Mayor Axelrod is still the chair of the commission, so I think he and some of the other commission members will be doing follow-up in terms of working with the governor's staff on that. So that's kind of happening on the state side. The commission still exists. The plan is to go back to the public corporation bill that we had drafted and worked on last round, and to see that to passage. It's got a lot of good support from your Clackamas County legislators. Rep. Meek in particular is kind of leading the charge on that. And that bill pre-session filing deadline is December 18th. But as I understand it, the bill is in good shape. There just needed to be some date changes and some small technical changes to deal with. It's a completely different session of the legislature. So that's kind of two goals for the state legislature with regard to the locks. With regard to the federal status, the Water Resources Development Act, the WRDA bill, which we always call it, even though they seem to change the name every other year, but we refer to it as the WRDA bill. The good news for the county is that both the House and the Senate versions of the bills include a very specific, very strong provision that deauthorizes the locks as a federal navigation project and provides for the transfer to an entity that will be identified by the state. And it has a lot of details in it. I think you're familiar with them, but it includes a permanent easement, right away. The Senate version is a little bit more positive because it says the Corps has to pay for any kind of technical things like deeds and transfer documents and titles and that sort of thing. And the House version does not include that, because between when the Senate wrote their bill and the House wrote their bill, the Corps decided they didn't like that and they strenuously objected to it. But Kurt Schrader and Peter DeFazio are pushing hard in conference for the Senate provision to be accepted. And Senator Merkley sits on that committee and is also pushing for the Senate to be amended. Right now, they're not technically in a formal conference, but the staff is kind of pre-conferencing the two bills. So they're trying to work out all the details. Congressman DeFazio's committee staff tells me that most of the big issues are settled, and they are working on some technical issues and some smaller issues. Some of the sticking points that they had about a month ago have been resolved. So, and there's some thinking that this bill will actually get done in December. I was a little surprised, but the committee staff feels fairly positive that it will get done. Not much else is going to get done, as Hal referenced. Something to keep the government funded. There's a slim chance that there'll be another stimulus bill for the virus-related relief, and then maybe the WRDA bill. And that would pretty much be it. So if that bill passes, that should really be able to help with the state legislature, because then all the good folks working on the Salem side of it in terms of the public corporation and potential funding would be able to say the federal government has already enacted legislation that makes this possible. And we didn't have that in the last round of the legislature. I don't know if I need to spend any time on the legacy project or the heritage area unless Sue wants me to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so I got a question. Why would the president sign any bill to keep the government running? Have you guys talked about that? Is the Congress talking about that?
Well, it goes back and forth every day. Senator McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate, is presuming that the president will sign something. But every time he says something like that, there's something else that comes up in a tweet by somebody else that the president hasn't actually said he will sign anything like that. But the president has said that he doesn't think there should be a government shutdown. But as we know, that doesn't mean he won't change his mind in 10 minutes because he changes his mind rather frequently, especially with regard to these fiscal situations. And it's reported pretty widely that he's in a terrible mood. And obviously any president is upset if they don't get reelected. So I'd be in a bad mood if I were him too. So it's just, there's no certainty, but I think most people, including myself, think that he will ultimately sign something. If for no other reason, that if the government shuts down, that's not going to be good for those 2 Georgia Senate races. And a lot of Republicans will care about that and will probably try to really pressure the president on it. But it's very hard to predict. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for the update on Willamette Falls locks. Let's turn to transportation for just a minute, return to transportation. There was, of course, all the commissioners have heard us talk about the infrastructure reauthorization effort and the reauthorization of the surface transportation bill now for several years. And it was supposed to have been done by September 30 of this year. That didn't happen. In the House, they did pass, Peter DeFazio ushered through a really significant reauthorization bill that was about $500 billion when it came out of the committee. And then when it came off of the House floor, it was closer to $1 billion. I mean, $1 trillion. And that's because it was combined with a number of other infrastructure proposals for like broadband and other types of infrastructure that other committees were interested in supporting. That all ended up with a giant thud on the Senate side, and there was absolutely no chance that they were ever going to take up that bill, and that's exactly what's happened. So even though Chairman DeFazio was able to push through a really significant reauthorization proposal, it has not become law and it will not become law. So now we're in this 1-year extension, and Peter DeFazio will have one more shot at reauthorization of the bill next year. And depending on who is the chairman of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, that could either go more smoothly or a little less smoothly. But either way, I think it's likely that we'll end up with a reauthorization bill next year. The size of that bill will be somewhat dependent on whether we've got a Democratic controlled Senate or a Republican controlled Senate. Peter DeFazio pushed hard for congressionally directed funding earmarks in the reauthorization bill when he was writing it this last summer. He was not able to successfully get agreement from Nancy Pelosi and some of the other Democratic leaders in the House. So it does not include any congressionally directed funding, such as high priority corridors and say, $100 million for the I-205 high priority corridor. That, if as Mark predicts, the conversation is going to include earmarks next year, or the serious conversation about that, I think there is serious opportunity for the county for a congressionally directed earmark for the I-205 Abernathy Bridge project. We'll certainly be pushing for that. And the difference between the appropriation earmarks and a reauthorization earmark is appropriation earmarks tend to be much smaller, in the $1 million, $500,000 categories for individual projects. Maybe they go up to $3 or $4, $5 million, depending on which program we're going after, but they're not in the tens and 20 and 30, $40 million range. Those of you who have been around the county for a long time will remember that the last time we had earmarks was about 10 years ago. And at that time, we got a $19 million earmark for the Sunrise Corridor in a reauthorization bill. That was the second largest earmark in Oregon history for a transportation project from the feds. And so that's the size that we would try to be going after if we get into a reauthorization earmark opportunity next year. One of the areas that we did apply for funding, and we were very disappointed that we didn't get it, Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Humbertson pushed hard for this with the Trump administration. We thought we had it well received. Your congressional delegation made phone calls right to the secretary, put in a lot of letters of support. Your business community put in a lot of letters of support, but the Bull Run Bridge grant request for the build grant ultimately was not successful. I thought we turned over all the rocks on that one, and we were pretty surprised when it wasn't included. I think, we can go back next year and try to submit another grant request for the build grant, but if Congress does begin to earmark the funds, that is one program that we think could easily be completely earmarked. It's a $1 billion program. The $25 million maximum threshold for projects. And so Congress could earmark a lot of projects and satisfy a lot of members of Congress with $25 million earmarks. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That might be an opportunity for us to go after the Bull Run project, or you may decide that that isn't your highest priority next year. That will certainly be up to you all. And on the housing side, I know that there are commissioners who are very interested in housing, and housing is a big issue in the region. The Senate appropriation bill has more funding for housing than the House transportation appropriation bill does. It is likely that that housing funding will be increased, but there are no earmarks in the FY21 appropriation bills. So it just is generally more money for housing that trickles down to, a few tens of millions of dollars more for each of the program areas like CDBG and things like that. So that's how it would impact the county, but it won't have direct funding implications. It'll be more kind of a trickle down approach. Mark, why don't we turn to the resource related issues?
Hal, I think we're running out of time, and I just want to make sure we have enough time for the commissioners to engage. So Mark, can you keep it quick?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just say very, very quickly, obviously catastrophic wildfires in Oregon and throughout the West were, kind of really dominated, obviously, you all's lives. I know my parents and brother both had to evacuate because of fires in Marion County, just over the county line. There is a chance, there are two different kind of pieces of legislation dealing with wildfire relief, which are, I think, have a chance in the end game of actually being in place. One of them is one from Peter DeFazio, which deals with FEMA, which is under his committee's jurisdiction. to decrease the non-federal cost share on FEMA relief, which would be a benefit, a potential benefit to you all. And then there's another piece of legislation on the Senate side from Senators Feinstein and Daines from California and Washington, respectively, which would actually put money in for U.S. Forest Service and other federal land agencies to actually do forest maintenance and kind of wildfire prevention. And I think both of those are in the mix for end of session of actually being able to kind of maybe move through. Nothing is a guarantee. There's no guarantee on anything that may pass at the end of this year, but both of those are, I think, would be positive things and would directly benefit Clackamas County and Clackamas County residents.
Okay, well, Paul has his hand up.
Yeah, good to see you all. Hal, Michelle, Mark, great to see you today. My question was, and I think this might be the right time actually. Now, we've put a lot of political capital in I-205 and a lot of efforts. And I think I'm optimistic that we're closer than ever at the state level to seeing, something happening pretty soon. With commitments. The legislature is going to convene, and I think there's going to be an effort to, and shortly, within a month or two, we'll have some kind of a commitment, I hope, to see the legislature, the state commit funding to get 205 underway. So with that said, and I know we have to keep our thumb on it, but that said, and Jim and I think we've always been in agreement on this. We always said that I-205 is our #1 regional priority, but our #1 county priority has been the Sunrise. And I'm just wondering, being that we have them both in our legislative agenda, if that it is time to maybe put some more emphasis on the Sunrise, and how your comments today about, whether they're earmarks or correct congressionally directed funds and the sizes, I just wondered if that is in the context of all the regional projects in the state, in this area, and the folks that, the jurisdictions that are going to be lobbying for those as well, if that is a viable thing to maybe put some more emphasis on the Sunrise, whether it's because of the emergency route exit, which are for the region, if there's a Cascadia, we certainly had, some emergency route scenario situations, people trying to get away from the wildfires. Wasn't as much on I-205 as it was 224 and 213 and 99E, but that's just something that is economically so important to the county, and it really achieves or helps a number of our goals for the county. It's a huge one. It's just so important. So I'd just like to get your thoughts on, should we put more emphasis on that and a little bit less on 205 at this point?
It's a really good question, and Michelle probably has some good, more local thoughts on that. But I think on the I-205, if it looks like you're making some real progress at the state level, and I think you'll probably have a feeling for that before the deadline for having to submit appropriation requests or reauthorization requests, even though Peter DeFazio and the Biden administration are talking about trying to move pretty fast on reauthorization. President-elect Biden has an awful lot of things he's going to do on the first day. And so it seems to me like that's going to all slip. And I think one of those areas that's going to slip is probably infrastructure. So I'm thinking it'll be more likely towards, May, late April, May, maybe even into June before we get into some serious conversations about that. You should have a pretty good sense of where the state is at that point, whether you've made any additional headway, particularly because of the Rose Quarter kind of, imploding. What does that mean for the I-205 project? So if it looks like you don't need to use the federal process as the priority, that would certainly be an opportunity to look back at Sunrise Phase 2. I think one of the issues that you're going to face, though, is that Oregon has traditionally, particularly the region, has particularly come forward with their transportation priorities kind of from a regional perspective. And you're going to have to work that one through. And Michelle might have some additional thoughts on that because she's closer to the regional issues than I am.
Yeah, lastly, I want to just close with this, and that is that as Commissioner Humberston is, not going to be with us, I know he's been a big advocate for broadband, rural broadband especially, and as a result of COVID and all this remote learning and all these things, a lot more pressure and a lot more emphasis. I'm hoping there's more significant opportunities, and just the unique makeup of Clackamas County. I think we are in a sense perhaps maybe suited to actually do quite a bit and leverage the investments we've already made, the infrastructure we already have, to get some investments, whether it's a public-private partnership or whatever it may be. But I'm just want to let you know that I hope to be filling the vacuum he leaves here at the county and pick that up on the infrastructure side. And so if there's any insights you all have or what's going on, I do attend the rural caucus stuff at NACO level. I know that Martha and Sonia attend the urban caucus. You got to choose one of them because they're usually at the same time. And I know that's been on their radar, always discussed in rural caucus. So I just want to let you know that I'm very interested in that.
Well, that's good to hear. And I think that I can't imagine an infrastructure bill going through next year without a pretty significant broadband component, because everyone across the country has faced this challenge to work remotely and have school remotely. And those places that don't have high-speed broadband have been really at a disadvantage, and that's well known across Capitol Hill.
Yeah,
Michelle?
I'll just add to that the House version of the HEROES bill, the next version of the relief bill for the virus, includes hundreds of millions of dollars for broadband with a focus on rural broadband. And one of the real motivating factors is really all of this telehealth, because so many people out in rural areas really don't have what they need in order to be able to do telehealth. And telehealth has become so important for provision of health services. And every medical association that I know of is very, very concerned about that and believes that telehealth is going to continue for quite a long time. So I think Hal's right. There's a lot of bipartisan support for broadband funding.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Well, I want to take a minute to thank Michelle and Mark and Hal for their outstanding service to Clackamas County and for the wonderful outreach and care you took of us whenever we visited Washington, D.C. It's been a pleasure. You're a great investment.
Well, thank you. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Mr. Chairman, and working with you, Mr. Humbertson. And we will continue to do our best to represent the county. And, we, as Sue mentioned when we first started the discussion today, we do want to organize virtual fly-ins for the commissioners next year. We didn't have the opportunity, obviously, in September for you to come back to DC. No meetings were taking place on the Hill. But, and I don't anticipate that Congress is going to do in-person meetings until at least June. But I don't want to wait until June to have those face-to-face conversations with your elected members of Congress, as well as kind of key congressional staff. And so we've been talking with Sue and Chris and Trent about organizing probably in late February, maybe early March, basically a couple of days for a virtual fly-in. And we'll set up the meetings with the members of Congress. And just as if you were here in person, we'll have scripts and talking roles for everybody, and we'll have those meetings virtually.
Great.
Hey, Jim, I see that Hal's got the same speech impediment you have.
Yeah, your pronunciation or your last name.
I know.
Humberstone.
Well, as someone who has the name Heemstra, I think I'm excused because it's never pronounced right.
It's okay.
Well, thank you. Anything else to add?
Well, thank you. Take care of yourselves, and I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Be safe.
Advice for me. Thanks everyone for the opportunity to talk with you all today.
Thank
Great to see
you.
you all. Thank you.
Good seeing you all.
Bye-bye.
All right, commissioners, we have 10 minutes before the next session, and I have an issue. Go back to the issues list. I have something to add that's late breaking. Chair Bernard had suggested having several town halls with commissioners after the governor announces her new metrics for COVID tomorrow. So to hold some town halls in the next 2 weeks and to target several segments of the public. First, a session for just the general public, a session for business leaders, a session for state legislators, and then a Spanish speaking session. So that would be 4 town hall meetings, and you're running out of time on your calendar. There is no times that all 5 of you are available over the next 4 weeks. So are you willing to have 4 sessions? And if so, can we clear your calendar of other items to make this happen? So I'm seeking your feedback. Chair, would you like
Or
to?
you can combine them.
Okay.
Some of them, yes. Paul.
So is there something significant that requires that? Because here's my concern, Gary. I don't mind, carving out the time on behalf of the people we're serving and everything, but it seems like every week there's a change and nothing is so dynamic. I'm not saying it's not worthwhile, but I'm just trying to put it in the context. Unless you know something coming that I don't know about, that drastically drastic that this is necessary.
I won't actually know that until the governor comes out. My understanding is it's possible there could be.
Well, I just got to go back to the fact that I'm not blaming anyone, but nothing has been consistent. What's been messaged, and I understand it's spiking, I understand it's very dynamic. Again, I'm not blaming anyone. All I'm saying is that what we spent a lot of time reacting to when the governor made her announcement a couple Fridays ago, kept us busy. And it's changing. It's always changing. So to me, it's more like it might be, the news break of the day, but maybe there's a way of consolidating that and making it more timely that we can update people on a weekly or 2-week basis on all the changes going forward, if that's going to be the pattern. But there is a pattern established of just that. We keep on telling our business is one thing, and unfortunately they make investments. And, those that made investments to prepare are now got their doors locked up and they're not able to leverage those investments, yet they haven't had any outbreaks. So it's just been chaotic.
21 new deaths today. Wow. Sonia.
So I don't know if everybody saw the draft of the new framework. Paul, have you seen it?
I've seen a little bit of it, but I'm taking everything with a grain of salt because
Right.
it's changing so frequently.
Well, it might change, but I do think that just the preview we had in draft form a week ago, I mean, I can look at that and go, oh, this is going to be so much better for this and this and this. And so I think getting input from the sectors is a really good idea. I spend time after we get emails about whether it's health clubs or restaurants, or I'm talking one-on-one with the different constituents that reach out to me as part of these sectors. I think having a dedicated time to really hear how this new framework is going to affect our industries and different sectors, I think is a really good idea. So I think my calendar could be cleared. I'd be all about it. And if they can always be recorded, if one of us can't participate, that's okay. I know that I went back and listened to different things at a later time that I couldn't participate on if it was a listening session through the county. So I would say to look for times when the bulk of us could be there. And if not, then we can listen later.
Well, I think we could make it 2 or 3. I just think the Latino population would be a separate one. the business and citizens could be one. And then the legislators, we could just do that, a separate one too. I'm willing to be at any and all that we need to be on. But one of the things that I just see in the media is that it's possible that an executive order will be out statewide to freeze, go back to a freeze. And people are going to need somebody that they want to download that stuff to. And that's what our job is, I guess. So
we're in a statewide freeze now.
well, this is effective Wednesday, it says. We're not in a statewide freeze.
We're not?
Not that I know of. Are we?
Yes, the governor has a statewide freeze for a 2-week period. So everyone right now. I think you mean to say phase 0. Remember before that we were in phases.
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, and 3. It'd be a phase 0, the stay home order when we first started this in March.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't read far enough down here. So moving everybody to a 4-week statewide freeze rather than a 2. That's what they're talking about. Anyway.
So commissioners, would you support we'll schedule 3 town hall sessions over the next 2 weeks. We'll let you know when to see if you want to change your calendars. If you can attend, great. If it's just 1 or 2 of you, that's fine. Would you be open to that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm fine with it. It's just hard to know what we're up against here.
Hey, if you find out ahead of me, let me know.
Ken, are you okay with this approach?
Yeah, my attendance will depend on what I would have to cancel or not. That's all.
Okay.
Schedule what you need to schedule. If there's something I truly don't want to cancel, then my colleagues would handle it. I'm sure of that. And if I can cancel it, then I will.
Okay, we will work together on some dates, share them with you and your staff, and then start promoting them next week. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, while we're on scheduling things, I know that we've talked about, I talked to Chair Bernard. I had a short conversation with Martha about trying to schedule a retreat before the end of the year, and hoping we can do that.
So yes, Commissioner Fisher is requesting a board retreat in the next 3 weeks. So are you interested in that, all of you? In which case we'll find a time on your calendar to do that as well. It'd be like a team building, how you work together type retreat. Is that correct, Commissioner Fisher?
Well, I think it's more about the future than it's about team building. I mean, there's things that are important to all of us that, I think we'd like to talk about. And with Ken and I gone, it's going to be dependent on the 3 remaining, maybe the 5. What moves forward in the future, and we just like an opportunity to talk. It could be a couple of hours, something as short as that, offline, just discussion.
Are you all willing to do that? And would you do it on a Friday or a Saturday?
I would. It's not a team building exercise, Ken.
Yeah, so
Please.
I think just to let you know that if you do that on a Friday or Saturday, I've got to navigate my own personal calendar. So, and you don't have access to that. So I do have some commitments through the year on Fridays and Saturdays at different time blocks. So it also depends on the time block.
Okay.
Well, we'll work with your calendars to find a time. Again, there's no time you're all available. So we'll offer you some suggestions and you can decide when would work for you for that. All right, we'll get on that too before, the next 3 weeks. Okay, it's time for the next session if you're ready to go for that.
Sure.
Okay.
Was Martha not joining us today?
Yeah, she had a family issue or she needed to deal with.
She had a family emergency to deal with. She will attempt to be here, but she may not be here the rest of the day.
I'm gonna run and go get myself something to drink, and I'll be back very, very shortly. So just know that I am still present.
Okay.
Was that an invitation?
Like to go ahead, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the next session is final draft master plans for the Oak Lodge and Gladstone Community Library projects. We have staff from Business and Community Services and our libraries and our City of Gladstone partners here. I'm not sure who's starting today. Catherine, is that you? Or
I think it's Laura.
Okay. Let's see. We'll wait just a moment for the room to load, please. Yeah, Laura's in the waiting room, so we'll wait just a moment. Hi, Laura. If you would please introduce all our guests and then start when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Bernard, Commissioners, and Administrator Schmidt. My name is Laura Zenner, and I'm the Director of Business and Community Services. And with me, I have Catherine Krieger, who's the Project Manager. I have Doug Jones, Chair of the Concord Task Force, Jackie Betts, the City Manager for the City of Gladstone. And I thought we were going to have Laureen, but I don't see her here yet. Laureen McClintock, who's the Vice Chair of the Gladstone Task Force. So thank you for having us here today. We're very excited to provide an update on the Oak Lodge and Gladstone Community Project. I will try to keep my comments short, but I do want to share some background information and my excitement for reaching such a significant milestone in the progress of this very important community project. So by way of background, in October of 2017, the county and the City of Gladstone entered into a settlement agreement in which the county agreed to construct and manage the two new libraries, the 6,000 square foot facility in Gladstone and a 19,500 square foot facility in the Oak Lodge Library Service Area in unincorporated Clackamas County. In a similar time frame, NCPRD acquired 3 properties from the North Clackamas School District, including the Concord property near the corner of Southeast McLaughlin Boulevard and Southeast Concord Road. 2 community task forces, the Concord Property and Library Planning Task Force, which we call Concord Task Force, and the Gladstone Community Library Planning Task Force, and we call the Gladstone Task Force. They begin meeting in early 2019 to advise staff in the BCC on the planning process, the community needs, and master plans for the Concord and the Gladstone Library. After more than 2 years of planning, designing, analyzing, and extensive community involvement, 2 hardworking task forces of dedicated, caring community members have each unanimously recommended a master plan, one for a new community center, a library, park, and offices on the Concord site in Oak Grove, and one for the new library in Gladstone. These 2 master plans together lay the foundation for the one library, 2 buildings concept agreed to in the 2017 by the county and the City of Gladstone. The 2 library buildings will be jointly operated by Clackamas County Libraries, and the community center, the park, and the offices will be operated by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. It can be difficult to keep a big project on schedule during normal times, but during COVID-19 pandemic and wildfires, keeping this large project on schedule is quite frankly amazing. The progress of this project would not have been possible without the collaboration, commitment, and dedication of such a great team. And I just want to take a moment to thank and recognize some important people who have contributed to the success of where we are today. So I'll start with the Gladstone Library Planning Task Force, and thank you for their work on this project. Lisa O'Brien is the chair, and Laureen McClintock is the vice chair. I also want to thank the Concord Property and Library Planning Task Force. Doug Jones, who's here, is the chair, and Dennis Hickey, the vice chair. Thank you so much for your work on this project. In Business and Community Services, I want to thank Mitzi Olson, who's the library director for both Gladstone and Oak Lodge, and I want to thank her staff also. In NCPRD, I want to thank Scott Archer, former NCPRD director, and Candy Ho for stepping up to keep operations running smoothly after Scott's departure. And in addition, I want to thank their staff. Melina DiFrancesco, who's worked on the community engagement along with PGA. Jessica Batron and Liz Lawson for their administrative support. And then finally, and probably most important, is Catherine Krieger, the project manager on the project. And then we have Public and Government Affairs, Ellen Rogelin and Amber Johnson, both community relations specialists who have been with us every step of the way. And Jackie Betts, city administrator, and Gladstone City Council for their partnership in this project. We could not have done it without them. And then the OPSIS architecture team, Jim Calvage and project manager Jennifer Hoffman. Again, the entire team has done an amazing job in moving this project forward and keeping us on track, even through COVID and the wildfires. So finally, none of this would have been possible without the support of the Board of County Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. They've made it very clear that they support the project and are willing to fill the funding gap that does exist. So in closing, I want you to know that this project is a top BCS departmental priority. My staff and I are committed to seeing this project through to the end, ultimately ending with 2 new libraries, a community center, park, and offices. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Krieger to give an update on the final master plans, and then she can also update next steps and where we're going from here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, Chair Bernard, commissioners, and County Administrator Schmidt. And Laura, thanks for those kind words. There sure are a lot of people there that have been involved in this project. It's kind of amazing how many there are and how much it takes to get a project done. I'm honored to be here today to bring forward the recommendation of the task forces who have been working so hard. And as Laura mentioned, during 2020, which had its challenges, they were really stepped up their involvement. And in some cases, the Gladstone Task Force was meeting every other week. And then the Concord Task Force was meeting every week so that the projects could stay in sync. So I'm honored to be bringing their recommendations forward. I'm going to jump into a presentation. I'm going to share my screen. So hold on a minute because I'm not seeing it.
Move approval.
Excuse me?
Said move approval.
I like that, but I have so much to say. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about, just go through the background a little bit, the process and schedule, some of the task force work, community engagement, and I'm excited to show you some of the drawings from the final master plans and also cost and funding and next steps. So today we're asking for 2 actions. One is to accept the Concord Master Plan report and the Gladstone Library Master Plan report as recommended by the 2 task forces. And then also to approve staff to move forward to work with the community and the consultants to complete design and engineering to keep us on track to begin a construction start of spring 2022. So you've seen this project a lot. I can tell that you're familiar with it. You've had many policy sessions, issues, and updates. I was here for an update in July. And so 3 months later, we have this recommended preferred alternatives to show you, which are part of the master plans. The 2 business meetings that you've had related to this project are, one, a year ago, you approved the OPSIS architecture scope of work so that we could begin the work. And then also related to the operations, you approved an IGA, which was between Clackamas County and the city of Gladstone for library construction and operations. That was the second piece of the settlement agreement. So this is the schedule. As Laura mentioned, this is the same timeline that we've been using throughout the project. I'm a little bit amazed myself that we're still on schedule. So these first 4 pieces are part of the master plan, technical investigation, the needs assessment and programming, design alternatives, and then the preferred design. And then we are here with the star showing today, and then we will move into design and engineering permitting with the construction start in 2022. And we are, as I mentioned, we are in lockstep between the two projects, between Gladstone and Concord. And I'm really excited that that's the case today, as well as throughout the project. So I think we mentioned this last time, but just quickly, I'll mention it again. The first thing the task forces did was create community values, and then they used those values to as criteria to evaluate the alternatives. They were on the selection team to select OPSIS architecture. They approved a public participation plan. They also, after community engagement, determined the uses that would be part of the different projects, the library, the community center, and the park. And then also, this was a significant one, the Concord Task Force unanimously agreed that it was feasible for the Oak Lodge Library to be located on the Concord property. So you'll remember a year ago, that was not a decision that the community was willing to state. So through the work, we were able to see that it is feasible, and given what they know today, they really feel like it is a good site for the Oak Lodge Library. Then the other work that they did was design workshops. This is one design workshop where there were cutout pieces and the community was able to work together. This is a picture of Doug, our chair of the Concord, to get these pieces to see how they would fit, and could see some of the challenges that was facing the design team. They selected the design alternatives, and then as Laura mentioned, they unanimously approved their respective preferred design alternative to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners after significant public input. So there were three we promised you, and you asked for, and we delivered, I think, a robust public process. We had a public open house and survey in Spanish, a couple of design workshops for each of the two sites, and then an open house, online open house and survey. We did have some significant work in the beginning of the project, reaching out to the Spanish-speaking community and underrepresented communities, such as some of the lower income, or we went to some food banks. We had some really good input from a group at the Oak Grove School and also the Gladstone Child and Family Service Center. And but I think, unfortunately, because of COVID, we just were not as successful in the second half of the project. So when we come back to you next time, I'm hoping that we will have been able to reach out, because it will be during the school year. Maybe we can find some other avenues to reach out to some of the groups that we didn't get to this summer. So jumping into the design, start with Gladstone, and then I'll go to Concord. Gladstone, the library is where this red square is here. It is situated at a major intersection in Gladstone on Portland Avenue and East Dartmouth Street. And you can see up here in this top picture is City Hall, which has been vacated, and the Civic Center, which now includes the City Hall functions, is up north on Portland Avenue, and this building is waiting for demolition. The preferred alternative has a corner entry, which is a really great response to these two important streets in Gladstone on their main street, what I call their main street, and also provides active uses on that street to really support a civic identity for the project. The functions of the library wrap around a large courtyard that you can enter in and out of it, and also brings a lot of light into the library, into the reading rooms. Great place to sit and read a book. Here are a couple of just perspectives. It looks like the building is designed, but don't let that fool you. There's a lot of design work left. We haven't done a lot of the work related to material selection and just character of the buildings. But I will mention we have included in our cost estimates for the Gladstone Library some ability to use cross-laminated timber, which I think the community will really appreciate. It's also an important priority for the county. This is a perspective on East Dartmouth. You can see this separate entry on the library where it's an opportunity to be able to close down the library and have the community be able to use the community room at night when the library might be closed. And you can see the courtyard, light filled, high ceilings, cross-laminated timber perhaps, and a really and a really spacious new library for Gladstone. The Concord property is, you know where that all is. It's on Concord and McLaughlin. This is the original building. It's a 6-acre site. And this is the preferred alternative for that the task force is recommending. It has the 6-acre site. The entry via vehicle entry is on Concord. There's also pedestrian entry off of Olive and Spalding Avenue. And the library functions are to the north of the building, the Concord School building. And then there are spaces which are shared here between the community center and the library. And that's really critical. That was one of the reasons this is a preferred alternative, because it allows a shared capital expenses, but also the opportunity to share operations with things such as janitors and other services, including just the physical space of an entry, a restroom, and circulation. And the cost for this one is 12.1 for the library and 23.7 for NCPRD. Those are total project costs. So a couple of 3-dimensional drawings for you. You can see here, this is the new library. The staff functions for the library are in this wing of the Concord School. There's a new entry, which provides accessibility for all through this new entry. And then a new gym for NCPRD on the eastern side of the existing building. Here you can see from a pedestrian level view the entry, which is nice. Again, you can see there's some suggestions of what the materials might be, but hasn't been determined yet. But definitely a light-filled library, welcoming entry, and high ceilings for reading room and stacks, and then a 2-court gym for NCPRD, which they don't have in any part of the district and would be a huge amenity for the district at large. So cost and funding always comes at the end. So first I'll do the library and then I'll do NCPRD. These funds are, they're shared funds for the 2 libraries. So 4.9 million for Gladstone, 12.1 million for Oak Lodge Library. So those are total project costs. Those include the hard costs, direct construction costs plus 30%. So we have a lot of work to do to true up the 30% and make sure that's an appropriate number, but it's a placeholder and we think a good one for now. So the total library cost at 17 million. These funding sources have not changed since the last time we talked. It does require a library bond to be paid back at $310,000 a year. No vote required there. And we are going to overturn as many stones as possible for potential grants. The total for the library funding that is available today is 8.7 million. And we know that that leaves a gap, which the county has agreed to fill at 8.3 million to a total cost of 17 million. On the NCPRD side, and one thing to note, Commissioner Savas mentioned last time is these funds, the costs are not commingled between the 2 projects. They have different funding sources. So our cost estimator has worked hard to separate those costs and make sure that the costs are attributed to the appropriate places. So the NCPRD Park Community Center and administrative offices for NCPRD total 23.7 million. Again, we have a variety of funding sources. This is probably not as developed as the library funding sources. We need to true this up, but we are working to get the sources and uses to align, and we will obviously come back to you with a project that is where funding sources and uses align. We have a couple of options. When we get further into design, we can look at phasing the project. We can look at doing alternates, bid alternates, so that we can really understand the costs of certain elements. But we have, you can see the Metro local share park grants, Hoodview proceeds, potential park proceeds, library proceeds. That would be for the library portion of, to buy their portion of the property, SDCs from zone 2, NCPRD reserves, another revenue bond, which is no vote required, but would be paid back at approximately $550,000 a year. That is about the same as the debt that was being paid back on the aquatic park, which has since been retired. And then again, we would be looking for grants, and we would be coming back to you soon, we hope, after schematic design with aligned sources and uses here. Next steps. We are working on something we're going to be talking to you about a lot in the coming year, I'm sure, is an IGA between the library and NCPRD for operations. We will be working to understand who pays for what and what things we can share. So that is a big task ahead of me and Laura and all of us. And then we will also be continuing community engagement. We will be meeting at least monthly. At least quarterly, but probably monthly in the first, the beginning of schematic design. And then as the project moves into more engineering type drawings, technical drawings, it would probably be less and quarterly. So in January through April, we'll be doing schematic design. Also hope to solicit for a general contractor or for a construction manager, general contractor, for help us with pre-construction services, so we can really make sure our costs are good and develop a good partnership and relationship with a general contractor. We will be researching grants, obviously working on all those funding sources. We know that there might be some seismic grants out there, also some environmental remediation and hazardous materials remediation through a couple of grants. Then we will be moving into that in the spring and the next year into the land use and building permitting, design development, construction drawings, and the subcontractor bidding to launch us into construction next spring in 2022. Not next spring, the one after that, 2022. So just a reminder, the 2 requested actions are to accept the 2 reports and the recommendations from the task forces, and then to approve us staff to move forward with the consultants to the next phase of design and engineering. So I'm going to, with that, stop sharing my screen. I know that we have some guests here that want to say a few words, and maybe I'll hand it back to you, Chair Bernard. And
Well, you have some guests who want to share a few words, so let's ask our guests to please share. Who would like to?
You want to start, Jackie? You want to start?
Great. Well, good afternoon, Chair Bernard, Commissioners, and County Administrator Schmidt. Wow. On behalf of the Gladstone Mayor and City Council, we would like to express our gratitude for your commitment to this project. As mentioned many times throughout this process, libraries are the heart of a community, and we are very passionate about our partnership in realizing a new Gladstone Library on Portland Avenue. We would also like to thank Catherine, Mitzi, and Laura for making us part of the team. They have included us in all of the meetings, and they truly value our feedback. So Gladstone is very excited for the commission to accept the Gladstone Library Master Plan report and advance to the next steps as outlined in the staff report. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Doug?
Hello, Chair Bernard, and good afternoon to the other commissioners and Administrator Gary Schmidt. Nice to see you all again. I spoke with you some in last July, kind of letting you know where we're at, and still at this time feeling very optimistic, very positive about the experience that I've had and that our task force has gone through in getting to this stage. We're thrilled with this preferred alternative that we're proposing to you. We've done a lot of time reviewing things like geotechnical reports and historic reviews, becoming experts on things we never thought we'd know much about, or not even experts, but enough to hear from some experts who were able to make things possible for us to understand that there's a lot going on here to bring all these projects together. As was mentioned, we didn't quite get the community input we had hoped for, but we did work hard and did get a fair bit of public feedback and involvement, and that's important to us. And you know, one of the things as a task force members that we recognized is that even though we had a pretty good size task force, we couldn't speak for everyone. So we did our best to try and make sure we were considering as much as possible. And the number of points of view that came together to make this happen were impressive and important to make sure that this was a full community project. So I'm just really excited to see that that this is going forward, that we've got something we can, with all confidence, present and say this is a plan that we as a community feel like would be significant for the residents of our area and those who would use these services. So we appreciate your time, appreciate especially the efforts of Catherine and the design team, Mitzi working on her side from the libraries thing. And then also, I think our partnership with the Gladstone Task Force off and on as we went, that tandem effort going forward was really valuable, I think, for us, because I think down the road with the joint library efforts, it's going to be important for all of us to know that that we're in this together, and that's been very exciting. So thank you for your time.
Lori? Your mic.
There. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lisa, our chair, couldn't be here today, but I'm going to represent Lisa. And we're eager to move to the next stage. The library was built in '62, and since 2004, we've been trying to get a library. So we're bringing you this at 16 years of a lot of history with Gladstone. But we're happy that this plan came out as the #1 choice of the community on our online survey, and it was unanimously picked by our task force. So we're pretty pleased with it. We like that it has a high energy efficiency, and we might be able to get that LEED standard. So that was important for our task force. We like that even though it's 6,000 square feet, the way that they've strategically put in the windows facing the courtyard, it's going to appear bigger. We also like the flexibility of the space. So we have that community room that can be locked off so that after hours, community can use that. We're just really excited about how it's going to look, and excited about what the next step with maybe some art and some really making it fit into that Gladstone community, and also working with Oak Lodge. But we've had a great time. Everybody in the task force has really been enjoying this work. So we thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for all your hard work, and maybe Paul wants to make a motion, but.
Yeah, yeah, I'm happy to, but I think what I'll do is just kind of share some thoughts and give some kudos. attended a lot of these meetings, community meetings, and I appreciate that. And even going back to the initial core group that was meeting at the firehouse, and all the citizens that really kind of were part of this, truly is an example, frankly, of, or just a community coming together, or organically for a purpose, and shape this whole project. And Gladstone included in this. And though we had our dispute and our settlement with Gladstone, I think that the leadership of the administrator at the time, Don Krupp and Jackie Betts, and the commissioners involved, myself included, we have since that time, it worked very, as Jackie kind of said, we have all worked very closely together. And we had some bumps along the way, and we coalesced, figured out a way, Gary's leadership, since he's been administrator, helping to sort those out, and even recent ones. So I want to applaud everyone. I think this is one of the examples we ought to have, and coming together with not just a community, but multiple communities here, multiple interests, diverse of a lot of opinions. We didn't say we're going to do it this way. The community said, the community shaped this all the way. And I've just been so impressed, actually. So I get a little bit choked up just thinking about how much personal energy that everyone put into this, and in such a strong way. So I want to just say thank you to everyone, and with a heartfelt thank you. And with that, Chair Bernard, I move to accept option 1 of the recommendation.
Second.
And 2? Can't we just do them both? 1 and 2?
I think option 1 included both. Did I read that?
That is correct.
No, it's option 1 and 2, right, Catherine?
Yeah, so there's 2 actions.
Okay, so I move to accept or move forward with option 1 and 2.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to move forward with option 1 and 2. And I want to say that I'm proud that this project moved forward in my 4 years as chair. Considering where we were 4 years plus ago, it's a long way. So Gary, you had something you want to comment?
I'm sorry, I need Laura to help. The staff report doesn't say that. Option 1 is what you're interested in. So I want to make sure that's correct, Laura. It's option 1, correct?
Yeah, there's 2 different items. One is accepting the master plan, and the second is actually allowing staff to move forward with the contracting for the next phase of construction.
I was just looking at the slide which called it option 1 and 2. Okay.
Yeah, I just read the packet, and it was so Laura, what's the proper motion? Option 1?
Point of order?
Yes.
I was going to say the proper one is following option 1, which is inclusive of the 2 items above it. They probably could have been labeled differently.
Okay. All right. We had the same issue the other day on something else, didn't we?
But
all right.
So I guess I had it right the first time. So
okay.
Yes.
So I correct my motion. I move to approve option 1. I do want to make one comment, and that is one other comment. I think Catherine touched on it. I think it's really important that there's 3 jurisdictions involved here. There's the city of Gladstone, there's Clackamas County, and there's also the NCPRD. So I know that I've been kind of a stickler to make sure that we keep the numbers and the books and the cost, and you've done that. And I know you'll be focusing on that, but I think because we have 3 jurisdictions involved here, it's important that we just keep it straight. And to that end, when does NCPRD as a jurisdiction need to take action, Gary?
Laura.
So what I would assume is that we will come forward with a staff report and an item on the consent agenda to approve both master plans.
Okay.
Catherine, is that what you would?
I'm sorry, what you were?
Just bringing it forward on the consent agenda to the next business meeting to formally approve what we're talking about here in the policy session.
Yes, you muted yourself, Catherine.
Sorry. So it can't be approved today. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, we're
Okay.
talking NCPRD.
Oh, okay, yeah, we could do that on a consent agenda item.
Okay.
All right.
And my other question is to Jackie. So when does Gladstone approve this?
I don't believe we have to.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, I want to make sure that the final motion made by Commissioner Savas is seconded, which is option 1, and I second it.
Thank you, Ken.
No further discussion. Christina, could you please poll us?
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston,
Congratulations, and I.
working on it. Commissioner Savas
Aye.
and Chair Bernard.
Aye, and again, congratulations. Great job. I look forward to seeing it in the future and checking out both of your communities. Thank you.
Yeah, and hey, Jim, I just want to make a comment that when I came onto the commission, this was one of the really difficult, contentious, challenging issues, and we really found a resolution. And I just want to thank Paul, because you were a guiding light through the most controversial pieces of this, from myself as a commissioner to really lean into the community early on to find a resolution. And I just really honor you for that, and just thank everyone that we're here today, that this was such a journey and such a beautiful testament to community involvement. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it took a team, and I appreciate everyone's involvement in that.
All right, Ken.
Yeah, piggybacking on Commissioner Fisher's comments there, I'd also like to give credit to Tammy Stempel and the new team that came on board in Gladstone, because with that new team that was willing to sit down with the county and work these things out, I think that's a big part of what helped make the progress occur. So thank you also to her team.
All right, thank you. Thank you, and have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you.
All right, we're 6 minutes ahead of schedule, but all the staff is here if you'd like to go forward, Chair.
Sure.
All right, and so let's keep in the room. Some people, we're still here. All right, next, Commissioners, Clackamas County Library Advisory Board bylaws update. We have Business and Community Services staff again to help present this item, Laura Zentner and her team. Laura, if you would introduce your team and go forward, please.
Okay, for the benefit of the audience, again, good afternoon, Chair Bernard, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. My name is Laura Zentner, and I'm the Director of Business and Community Services. And with me, I have Mitzi Olson, the Library Director for both Oak Lodge and Gladstone, and Allegra Wilhite, our new Deputy Director in Business and Community Services. So thank you again for having us here today, and we're excited to provide an update on the proposed bylaws for the newly formed Clackamas County Library Advisory Board. So I'll give the background, much shorter than the last background I just gave, but I do just want to point out a few things. In October of 2017, and I know you've heard this many times, but the county and the city of Gladstone entered into a settlement agreement in which the county agreed to construct and manage the 2 new libraries, one in the Oak Lodge service area and one in the city of Gladstone. The agreement called for a 1 library, 2 building approach, with both libraries operated by the county to achieve economies of scale and to best provide quality library services to Oak Lodge and Gladstone. In November of 2019, an intergovernmental agreement was executed that detailed the obligation of both the county and the city in carrying out the terms of the settlement agreement. And that IGA included all of the details regarding the transfer of operations, transfer of facilities, and transfer of staff from the city of Gladstone to Clackamas County, as well as the details of funding and timeline for construction of the new Gladstone Library. And finally, the IGA detailed the formation of a new library advisory board for the 1 library, 2 building approach. And this includes the dissolution of the Gladstone Library Board, Advisory Board, and the formation of a new Clackamas County Library Advisory Board. It was agreed that the new library board would constitute a single committee to advise on matters concerning library services, policies, and general library related issues. It was also agreed that the library board would include, and this is very important, proportional membership for the unincorporated portion of the Oak Lodge Library Service Area, the unincorporated portion of the Gladstone Library Service Area, and the city of Gladstone. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Mitzi, and she can give you an update on the process and the details regarding the updating of the bylaws and also the creation of the new Clackamas County Library Advisory Board. Thank you.
Okay, give me just a moment here to share my screen. Can you see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners and county administrator. I'm Mitzi Olson, the manager of the Gladstone and Oak Lodge libraries. We are presenting today an update on the new Clackamas County Library Advisory Board bylaws and seeking formal approval. Let me start with some background information. Some of this is overlapped with what Laura was just saying, but let's go ahead and give the context here. In October 2017, Clackamas County and the city of Gladstone entered into a settlement agreement where the county agreed to build and operate 2 new library facilities, one in the Oak Lodge service area and the other in the city of Gladstone. In November 2019, an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, between Clackamas County and the city of Gladstone was finalized. The IGA states that the Gladstone Library Board will be dissolved by November 14th, 2020. The Gladstone City Council met on November 10th to finalize this dissolution. The IGA also states that a new single library advisory board will be formed to advise on library-related issues for both libraries. Whoops, I accidentally hit that. 1 second here. The IGA specifically states that the membership on this new library board will have proportionate representation for the unincorporated Oak Lodge service area, the unincorporated portion of the Gladstone service area, and the city of Gladstone. However, the IGA is silent on details such as the number of members, responsibilities, term lengths, how officers are appointed, and other details you typically see in a bylaws. Whoops, sorry. So we formed a subcommittee from the 2 library boards from Gladstone and Oak Lodge to work on the draft bylaws. The subcommittee was comprised of 4 library board members, 2 from the Gladstone Library Board, Gary Bukowski and Michael Milch, as well as 2 members from the Oak Lodge Library Board, Grover Bornefeld and Leslie Shirk. The group rolled up their sleeves and started providing input on the structure that they wanted for the new advisory board. The group met twice and brought the suggestions from the subcommittee to each library board for additional input. We took the draft bylaws that were created from the subcommittee and brought both library boards back for additional feedback. We incorporated the feedback from the library boards into the bylaws that we are presenting for approval today. We have had significant community involvement and input for the structure of the new library board. We had 2 library board subcommittee meetings. We had an optional Gladstone Community Library Planning Task Force meeting where we educated the members about library boards and the work that they do. We had 3 Oak Lodge Library Board meetings and 3 Gladstone Library Board meetings, all in the interest of trying to gather input and to have this committee represent the needs of the community. So we are proposing a 5 voting member board with 2 non-voting ex officio members. 3 members must reside within the Oak Lodge service area. An alternate member residing within the Oak Lodge service area can be appointed to vote only in the absence of a regular member. 1 member must reside within the unincorporated portion of the Gladstone service area, and 1 member must reside within the city of Gladstone. An alternate member residing within the Gladstone service area can be appointed to vote only in the absence of a regular member. If the elected chair is from the Gladstone service area, then the vice chair will be from the Oak Lodge service area and vice versa. The chair and the vice chair will work together to create the meeting agendas. The two non-voting ex officio members will be elected officials, one from the Board of County Commissioners and the other from the Gladstone City Council. Each service area will have a Library District Advisory Board, LDAC, representative. The three members from the Oak Lodge service area will recommend their LDAC member appointment to the BCC. The two members from the Gladstone Library Service area will recommend their LDAC member appointment to the BCC as well. The member representing the City of Gladstone will chair the City Ad Hoc Library Committee. Both library boards felt it was important to be involved in the selection committee for the new board, along with county staff. We are recommending that 4 library board or community members be involved in the recruitment selection committee, with 2 Gladstone Library Board members, 1 residing within the City of Gladstone and the other within the unincorporated portion of the Gladstone service area, and 2 Oak Lodge Library Board members. And due to a conflict of interest, members that apply for a position on the new library board cannot be involved in the selection committee. If needed, members from the disbanding boards can select community members residing with the appropriate service area to join the selection committee. The recruitment selection committee will make the formal appointment recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. We are recommending the initial library board appointees have staggered term limits, with 1 membership expiring June 30th, 2022, 2 memberships expiring June 30th, 2023, and the final 2 memberships, 1 from each library service area, expiring on June 30th, 2024. We have 2 options before the board today. Approve the proposed Clackamas County Library Advisory Board bylaws as submitted, or do not approve and require specific change to the bylaws. Staff recommends that you approve the bylaws as submitted. Do we have any questions?
I don't see any hands up, but my screen is down.
Mr. Chairman,
I just want to just comment. This is another example of a lot of work from our community members and staff. You can probably get a little bit confusing and realize we have the task forces for the projects, the Gladstone and the Oak Lodge. You have the Standing Library Committee for the county. You have LDAC. It's just a number of organizations that make the fabric of libraries, so to speak, complete. And this is just one of those changes. I know that everyone worked hard on that, and I'm ready to make the motion to approve option 1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve option 1. Again, great job. A lot of hard work went into this, and it's an honor and privilege that this took place during my last 4 years on the commission. So with that, Christina, please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard.
Aye. And thank you, Commissioner Humbertston, for your second. Just want to say his name. All right. Well, thank you all very much for your hard work, and congratulations on another smooth move. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay healthy.
We are done with policy sessions, but we'll go back now to the rest of issues and commissioner communications. You have not all finished your commissioner communications.
There's only one person who hasn't finished their commissioner communication. That was me. What's that?
That is correct.
You know, it was mentioned during the discussion or the commissioner communication. Sorry, I'm very restless. You know, something I said, and I just want to say something. You know, I learned a big lesson when I addressed former legislators' efforts to get rid of our health plan in the state of Oregon. And by the way, had that occurred, we would have a lot bigger problem in our hospital system and with COVID than we currently have. But my lesson was that what I say impacts all of you, whether I meant it to or not. And my lesson was not to say things that would come back on the people that I respect, my team. And so that was the lesson. Not that I shouldn't, I'd say it again if it didn't impact you guys, but it would. So I did learn that lesson. You know, I would say that there's been a lot of really tough challenges during this COVID, working with the governor and with Kafori, Chair Kafori and Chair Harrington has been an honor and a privilege. We have an emergency call tonight at 6 o'clock to discuss some issues. But one other thing, and I'm going to really make this short, is that we need to get the word citizen out of our vocabulary. We do not just work for the citizens of Clackamas County. We work for the residents of Clackamas County. If you live here, you get the same service that anybody else gets. So in the future, just try to get that out of your vocabulary. Today was a great day. I mean, two very important issues were resolved. And that's the library district, the library board. Did we talk about, oh, the parks district's a different thing, right? When's that discussion coming, Gary?
Yeah, the bylaws for,
Yes.
That's the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to thank Paul for the hard work on that. And it sounds to me like it's moving ahead and we can put that behind us. Other than that, I hope everyone stays healthy and protects one another by wearing a mask. Again, Sonia, thank you for your comments earlier today, and Martha for yours. We have a big burden, and that is to protect all people of color, all people of different orientations, and hopefully the lesson I learned that what I say and what I do impacts all of you. Hey, that's a poem. And thank you, and see you tomorrow. Long day tomorrow too. Oh, what is tonight's meeting, Sonia? Do you know about that? I'm gonna just ask you. I have a sick.
Tonight's meeting?
Yeah, let me get my calendar. And I think you know about this. It's
I have not.
Contracting meeting.
Oh, what kind of meeting?
BIPOC. Pope.
I don't have this meeting on my calendar.
I don't know what this is. Okay, I'll ask Caroline. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, and if it's something I need to be at, please let me know.
Okay, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, anything else for the good of the order?
That's all till tomorrow.
All right, see you tomorrow. Thank you.